What's going on, party people? Coach Andrew here from the C2C podcast. Over the past 3 weeks, I've been working with a lot of our clients on team management. This is going to be communicating new SOPs that we've got going on, communicating the new changes to programs or maybe new offers that they have launching, as well as maybe the changes that they're making to job positions and roles. So that way they can maximize the amount of leads, maximize the sales that they've got going on, and basically continue to build and grow their business. This is especially relevant because the new year is coming up. January, February, and March are the top 3 months where you're going to be making at least 40% of your revenue. And yeah, believe it or not, it is 40% on average of your revenue for your health coaching business. If you are not prepared for January, February, and March, you are losing the huge opportunity. And that means the rest of the year, you're going to be reactive with everything, scrambling to get your retention up, scrambling to get more sales in, trying to find more leads. And instead of doing that, you could do what my clients do, which is they get the jump on it before the new year so they have all of their SOPs and their processes in place. That being said, and here's where team management comes into play and why this episode is being made, is your team and the members around you do not move at the same speed that you do as a business owner. And I know that's hard to believe. We think, well, I should just tell them to do it, give them the sheet, and it should be implemented. It's like, no. You as a business owner are making a lot of changes on the fly. You are kind of at the helm of the ship. You can see the icebergs coming towards you, and you're making adjustments based on what doesn't work for the business, what doesn't work for the client, where you can see improvement. However, a lot of people in their roles are working on the lower level of the ship. They don't see the icebergs. So just because you're communicating actions or you're communicating steps to them doesn't mean that they necessarily understand why these changes are being made, what the purpose of the changes are that are coming in, and ultimately how it's going to be benefiting them and how it's going to be benefiting their clients. What that means is, like most health practitioners, you have a team that's operating almost 3 to 4 months behind the timeline that you need when you're working in the future. So the key is team management. It's communicating. It's having regular meetings with your team, clearly communicating any of the processes or the changes. And that's basically what I've been doing with my clients over these past 3 weeks. We sit down, we meet with their team. A lot of the times they actually have me come in on their team meetings to communicate the processes that we've been working together. We get open feedback from the team to see kind of what's working or what's not working on their end. And then we communicate the changes and what's going to go on. The important thing about team management is you need to have a couple of things. You need to have an open room where they can express themselves so that way they can actually feel seen and feel heard. That's very important, especially if they're a team that you care about, which, let's be real, you care about your team. You want to make sure that if there's anything that you missed or anything you stepped over because you're not in their role, they have the opportunity to bring that up. Then what comes in the meeting is why the changes are being brought into place. This is where you as the business owner have the opportunity to share with them a little bit behind the curtain, which is like, here's what we're finding as a business. So why the process is clunky, why it doesn't work for the business, why it doesn't work for the clients or the members, because ultimately that's why all changes should be made. And then of course, why it doesn't work for the position or the SOP that you're changing. So whether it's you're having a meeting with front desk, whether it's you're having a meeting with maybe some practitioners or some of your coaches, or maybe you're having a team or a meeting, with sales. That's basically the intro. You have to line that up so that way then you can go and present the change. Presenting the changes is really, really crucial because we don't just want to say, hey, we're making these adjustments and that's it. What we want to do is we want to showcase to the team, here's our thoughts behind the changes. Here's why the changes are relevant. And then we go and communicate the changes on a step-by-step. What we're changing, what's clearing up in the roles, why this is being changed, and then of course, how the changes are going to benefit you as the team, our clients, and then of course, ultimately the business. When we are looking to make changes inside of the business, it's not just making a quick sheet change for the SOP and then sending the SOP in an email or a Google Doc and you're like, watch the video. A lot of people might not be energetically aligned with the changes that you're making. And there's a reason why we always have to communicate and over communicate a lot of the changes inside of our business to our team members. And that's because they don't see the same vision that you are seeing inside of their business. When I talk about them being at different levels of the ship, like the person working in the boiler room does not see the stuff that you see on captain's deck. So you have to communicate what's being seen and what the vision is, and you have to make sure they're on board for those changes. Otherwise, you can make this implementation, but this is where you may tell people to do something and it doesn't get done to either the level that you're having them do or that you're wanting them to do, or the level that is going to be beneficial for the client. And that's really crucial. So when we go and we're having these team meetings and we're explaining why the changes are happening, we then go and we walk through the SOP. This is where we have to talk about alignment and being on board. Getting feedback through the meeting and through the process is very important. Also letting them know that the values of the business means we put the clients first, we put our team second, and then we put the business third. That's also very important because what they come to understand through that conversation is that it's not just about making changes for dollars. Every single one of you guys as health coaches and practitioners have built a business and designed a team that is to make the end user, aka your clients, see the best results possible. They don't get to see the best results possible if they are not consistent, if they're not being sold on the process, aka sales is falling through, if you're letting potential leads slip through the cracks, because those are all people that you can serve, and if they're not in your program, you can't serve them. And that's how we communicate these changes. We don't communicate changes like, oh, our sales are down, so we need another 30% sales, and these are why we're making the changes. Ultimately, that's not going to be a connective piece for a lot of the team members that you're working with, because every single person on your team is driven by something different. Some people will be driven by commission because, let's be real, there are people who are driven by money. Others might be driven by purpose, like they decided to work with you because they really love what you do and they believe in the type of service that you offer. Some people are driven by being connected to the vision, where they're like, wow, I really like the idea of making these changes because I can see how it impacts the end client and I can see where we're going with these adjustments. You have to know who you're speaking to and who's in the room, and you have to make sure you're addressing that as a part of the team. The goal through the first meeting of a change is basically for you to iron out alignment, make sure everyone is on board with the change, get feedback from whoever has any questions or any comments about what didn't work in the past, and then of course get feedback on the process or how they're feeling about the change that you just presented. Only then can you go and roll out the change with training. This is where having individual conversations with your teammates, making sure that they're properly trained on the rules or the SOPs, creating cheat sheets and SOP guides so that way when they go to do the role, it becomes very seamless for them to implement. Because friction is going to equal resistance, and if they have resistance to the change, they're not going to fully implement your process. Now, here's a very unique thing which I want to share with you coming out of a lot of these client calls. There's also going to be the uncertainty with some of your team members because the changes that you're making have not been proven in process. So like maybe, here's an example for you, like maybe you are creating a new program and you're like, hey, we're launching this new program. Here's how we're going to run it. This is why we're making all these changes. And right now there's 0 people in that program because you haven't launched it. People who might be a part of running that program or who might be responsible for doing the sales or doing the admin as a part of that program have questions and concerns around, well, the way we've done it in the past has worked, so why are we changing now? This is your opportunity as a business owner to prove that the concept works by getting people in that program and serving it at a very high level. It's the same thing when it comes with sales. If you change your sales process, people who are doing sales now are going to say, well, it is working. We're getting people to sign up. So why are we making the adjustments? You will always have a little bit of uncertainty, which you might see as a business owner as your team members being negative, only because they don't have any experience that the process has worked. right? Just like if you open a new class and you're like, we're going to do this. And you're like, well, we don't have anyone in the class right now. This is why you have to double down and you have to be the leader of a lot of the changes. This means that a lot of the training that you do, you have to do with them. It also means that you have to be the frontline person to lead a lot of these changes inside of your business. One thing that I see with a lot of people who struggle with their teams is the people who delegate, but they're simply delegating because they don't want to do it. So let's say you make a couple changes to SOPs, you start having a dedicated person for social media, you start having a dedicated person for admin, you're telling them the admin to like create newsletters or something like that, but you're not really training them how, you're just basically saying, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, so we're making the changes so you have to do it now. What that shows a lot of the team members is like, I'm not in alignment with this. This is being passed to you simply because I don't want to do it, and it gives a negative connotation to a lot of the changes that are being made. Your team is the most important thing inside of your business. No business gets built alone. Everyone needs support. So you have to make sure that they're fully aligned, that they fully understand the changes that are going on, and that they have all of the tools and the skills to implement those changes effectively. If you do not have those three things, guess what? Doesn't matter how many meetings you have, you're never actually going to fully implement whatever changes you're looking to make inside of your business. And I can tell you, as a business owner, this feels painfully slow. It feels painfully slow because in your head, you've already made the change, you're moving 1,000 miles a minute, and you feel like your team is lagging behind. But this is where you have to lean in and understand that people do not move at your speed. Changes take time. And it doesn't mean you have to take a whole year to implement something. No, you can implement very quickly, but this is where education on how you're going to implement is going to be very important. Like one of the things that I do in my team meetings is I talk about imperfect action over perfection. I lead and I'm very upfront. Hey, this is a new process, which means that it's very fluid. It is going to change. It's going to change based on your feedback. It's going to change on the member experience. It's going to change depending on what we're getting from clients. And it's going to change depending on whether or not we encounter anything that's clunky. Think of this version as version 1.1 of whatever we are going to be launching here today. We are letting them know that imperfect action means that it's okay if some of this stuff doesn't work in the beginning. The second thing that I talk about is communication. Guys, through this process, if it feels like friction, if it feels really tough, if there's something that's still not in alignment, or if you guys have certain feelings that come up after the meeting, this is your perfect opportunity to come and address them because this is the direction that we're moving together. What we are saying is for us to move together and for us to get into full alignment, you have to be fully on board. This also gives them permission to communicate stuff that maybe isn't in alignment with them. Maybe you launch a new program and they're like, I don't really see how this is going to work, or I don't think our clients need this. And here's one thing that I really want you guys to understand when it comes to teams. Your team is frontline for your business. Your admins are frontline for any challenges or any complaints that clients have coming in. Your coaches or your health practitioners that are on your team are frontline for whether or not clients are seeing results in their experience. Your salespeople are frontline as to whether or not your offer is landing with your audience. So you have to pay attention to that. If you go and you launch an offer and 3 weeks into launching the offer, a salesperson comes to you and they says, listen, nobody's buying this. People don't want it. They're not interested in it. They say that there's missing pieces. You can't get butthurt and you can't be like, oh, no, this is unacceptable. No, there is some truth to what they are saying here, and you have to find out what is it that is not in alignment so they can be fully in alignment and actually sell the thing. It's the same thing when it comes to front desk. If front desk is saying every single day, hey, people are asking for a specific membership option, or people are having the same problem over and over again, you have to listen to it and be like, there's some type of feedback here that I can take and make adjustments on. Now, when it comes to a process that's very new, we don't make adjustments on a day-by-day basis. You may have to put a process into place with your team and then see after a month or a month and a half. But if you're getting the same problem over and over again, or the same question over and over again, it usually means that there is room for improvement inside of your process. This is why like a lot of the businesses we're working with now inside of C2C, they do these meetings and stuff for the rollout beforehand, before they're doing stuff for January, February, March. Because if you're hopping into January, changing your process, and then you're thinking you're going to launch a program at the end of January, it's not going to be a successful launch. You're not going to get a successful fill because a lot of your team is still 3 to 4 months behind in the implementation side of it. They have to be trained on how to make those changes. They have to actually put into practice making those changes. They have to get feedback on the changes that are being made. So after you do this first meeting where you introduce the changes for the team, this is where you have to set up individual time where they can either get the training from you or from someone on your team, and then you have to set up a meeting to get feedback on how the training went. This means a lot of time communicating with your team. It means a lot of time getting feedback on what works or what didn't work. And it also means a lot of feedback on changing stuff on the fly if what you've implemented is still feeling really clunky with the team. 95% of business owners don't do this. And that's why a lot of practitioners have a hell of a hard time keeping a team. They either say, oh, my team is never in aligned with what they do, or with what we do. We're always complaining all the time. They're complaining about the changes being made. They're complaining about the way that we're doing things. Or I have team members that after we make a change, they say, no, I want to switch roles. I don't want to be a part of this. All of this as a business owner is your responsibility. You need to communicate the changes better. You need to make sure they're fully in alignment with the vision of the facility. You also have to do your due diligence to make sure that when people are doing roles, they are in the right roles for them. I don't believe in hybrid roles. I don't believe some people are going to be half admin, half social media, half assistant trainer or assistant coach, because the more you start to fragment someone's roles and their abilities, you actually limit their room for growth. And there's a level of confusion because roles always overlap. This is why if someone's going to be a coach or a practitioner, let them do that. If someone's going to be front desk, let them do that. And it means you have to be very specific and selective with who you are putting into those roles. Managing a team is about doing your due diligence to make sure the right people are doing the right things the right way. And if you do that, this is where leads are going to be followed up with a specific way. Sales become very predictable, where you know how many people are going to be signing up each and every month. And also retention is very steady, where because your process is happening the same way every time, people are going to stay longer and you're going to be able to predict who stays longer. There's kind of 3 issues, which is so interesting to me, that when people go to look at their team, they don't realize that managing their team properly helps with this. Retention is huge. If you are communicating properly, the process of sales, the process of systems, and the process of client delivery, your retention should be through the freaking roof. You shouldn't be going into next month wondering, how many people am I going to lose this month, or how many people are going to finish up the program? You should know how many people are going to exit. Same thing, which comes from the second area, which is you should know how many signups you are getting or you're expecting to get every single month. If your nurture system is very strategic and your lead follow-up is strategic, you have a process for how your admins or your closers bring people on, and you have the same salespeople trained on the same process. If you're the salesperson, you're following the same system over and over again, then you should know if I have 50 leads, I'm getting 20 people out of this. Vice versa, where it's like, hey, if in order for me to get 80 clients, I need to have 300 leads that come in, and that's going to lead to like 100 consults. The process should be very streamlined. And that happens when you communicate with your team and you have a proper process and guideline. Now, the third thing which your team can really help with is your team should be able to help with the retention of each other. It's so important that your team is lit up, they're fired up, and they're excited about being able to be a part of your community, be a part of your team, and work with each other. If you communicate your processes and your steps and the way that you're leading into your business with a vision that people can get behind, why would they leave? Why would they complain? Why would they get frustrated with the changes? They should be excited about the changes. And the difference is them basically having the understanding of why the changes are happening in the first place. So team management and actually being able to be a leader for your team members can really affect a lot of areas of your business. And that's why spending so much time with your team and investing in your team on the trainings and the tools and, different SOPs for them is something that is very, very important. Never neglect that. You don't just show someone something once and then you never share it with them again. You go back and you track a couple of times a year to make sure that they are still doing the process the same way every single time. So I wanted to share this episode because when we're looking towards growing our team, we can, of course, do the team management. We can make sure we're communicating the SOPs. We can make sure that the processes are right, that they have the right training. That's going to cover the majority of managing your team successfully. There is, however, always going to be what happens if we make the changes and people are not in alignment with some of these changes. And that happens. Example, maybe you've been a practitioner or health coach for 5 years or 6 years now, and you're changing your business model. You go from working one-to-one to now you're group only, or now you're pivoting online, or maybe you're adding in a new branch of services. You only did nutrition before, now you're bringing on a naturopath, you're adding something totally different to your business. There is going to be a chance that the existing team members that you have are not going to be a fit, or they're not going to be the right people for you to transition into a different model of business moving forward. Because if you think about it, when they were hired with a specific set of expectations. They were hired with a specific vision that they were sold to and that they were preached about, and they got into full alignment and they were on board with that. If your business model is completely changing and you're trying to force people to make the changes, but they don't want to change, then you also have to understand and accept too that sometimes people are not going to be on board with some of the changes that you're making inside of your business. And that's okay. Not everyone is going to be a good fit for everything, and not everyone is going to stay a part of your team forever. As business owners, though, it's tough because we have egos attached to people. We've invested a lot of time, energy, maybe a lot of financial resources to train them, and it's hard for us to say, well, now this person might not be a right fit. But here's the reality. People change. Your business changes. And what is required of them is going to change too. And if they're not on board with that, here's my thing. I am not a big believer in firing people. I don't like to fire people. I think firing people is very dumb. What that tells me is that you hired someone who wasn't the right fit in the first place, and then they let you down simply because you didn't communicate expectations right. What I'm a believer of is continuously raising the bar until someone goes, this is no longer for me. So if I have a team member who's not in alignment with the journey or in alignment with the process, I have individual meetings. I sit down and I say, hey, where is it that you're receiving the friction? Here's how we're moving the team together. You're not meeting some of the standards that are here. I want to make sure that it's easy and seamless for you. I want to help you implement these things. And here's the benchmarks. And what we do is we have meeting after meeting. We have process after process. And what they're going to find alongside you, because you're going to find this as well, is that week after week or day after day, they're going to consistently not meet the benchmarks. And then you're going to have a conversation at the end of a 2 or 3 week period, and you're going to say, hey, you're not making the benchmarks. You're still not hitting where we need to be. And then what they're going to respond with is, this is not in alignment with me anymore. This is too much. I'm done. This is where their recognition of, I don't want to go this direction, meets your recognition of, you're not a good fit for this right direction. And you help them transition into something else. If that means outside of your company, giving a referral to someone else to say, hey, this person is a good employee. They're just not a good fit for a good direction we're going. That's fine, but do that. Don't hang on to team members who are going to drag you down as you start to make changes in your business. Because all it takes is one team member to be like, nope, this isn't going to go well, or nope, I don't want to do this, to infect the mindset and the vision of all of the other team members. And then they're going to start to have friction of implementation as well. You want to make sure that every single person is on board with what you're doing to move that alignment. Now, in doing that, this means that you have to give people the opportunity to change as well too. Just like I said, if you don't like, hey, we're not going to fire you, it's doing even more training with them to make sure that they understand the reasons of why these trainings are. In my opinion, skeptics of your process, the people and the team members who are like, I'm not really sure why we're doing this, or I'm having a hard time getting behind this, if you can convert them, they become the drive home of that process because they see the value and they're like, holy cow, now I get it. Right? It's the same thing like some of those clients that are skeptics. The people who have maybe failed in their health over and over again, but then all of a sudden see results with you, become your biggest supporters and your biggest advocators. It's the same thing with your team. So you have to make sure that you're willing and that you're available to do the trainings and you're leaning into those people. But at the end of the day, be attached from the outcome of that. I'm always the type of person, I can control the level of effort I put something in. I can control the amount of time and attention and energy I put towards something. I can control my approach, like the way that I'm communicating it, but I can't control the outcome. So if I go and I do a training with a team member and they're not in alignment, I'm not here to convince you, or I'm not here to drag you along. It's actually going to be more advantageous for you to go seek out another opportunity elsewhere, and that's okay too. That means, though, as business owners, we have to release our ego when it comes to managing our team. A lot of the times when I'm having communications, and it's so weird because it's people outside of the health industry, I talk with people about their teams and they're like, my team's just not motivated, or they don't work like me, or they're not driven, or they never implement the changes that I make. But then when I talk about all these things that I just shared on this episode, they're just like, no, like we implement the change and we expect them to just follow it and learn by themselves. And there's no connection as to why the change is being made. And then it's like, well, no freaking wonder. No wonder why your team's not in alignment with this. You didn't help them get there. You just kind of threw a couple stacks of paper and you're like, figure it out. And maybe for some parts of your business, yeah, there is a level of like, hey, you're self-led. You can like watch a training and, implement a small change on software. That's fine. But if it's big changes, like changes to position, creating new offers, especially launching or filling new programs coming January, February, March, you want to make sure everyone is 100% behind it. Because if they are, come these really important months, you're going to stack a significant amount of revenue. Your team members are going to feel super fulfilled because they actually are being led through the change. They're not scrambling through the change trying to find out. And they're going to want to stay with you longer and they're going to want to work harder for you. All of the team members that I have had in the past and have currently, when they are on board with something, and they feel the alignment and the drive and the excitement from me as a business owner, they get fired up and they're willing to do more. They're willing to go the extra mile because they see and they recognize how important it is. But if you don't give them that opportunity to make the connection of how important, well, then they get to put the level of importance on it. And maybe to them, it's going to be a 2 when it should be a 10 because it's a 10 for you, right? So that's what I wanted to do and chat about in this episode for start putting the focus on your teams. And if you haven't had a team strategy going into this new year for January, February, and March, you got to sit down with your team ASAP. I don't know what you're waiting for because guess what? Like these people need time for training, for the resources, so you can capitalize on these next couple of months. And if you need support on managing that team, then this is where you can always join the CDC program. Like I said at the beginning, one of the things that I do, because I feel like it really helps when it comes to team implementation, is I'm a part of a lot of these meetings where they will bring me in, different coaches or different practitioners will bring me in to sit with their team to help them understand the changes that are going on, why we're making these new changes inside a business, and then communicate the vision so that way everybody can be on board. And oftentimes that's better not being heard from the business owner. Because a lot of the times when the business owner is speaking, you guys are like, hey, we're making these changes, this money, boom, we're going to get clients, it's going to be pumped. And they're like, I don't care about any of that. Like, how does this affect me? So when we communicate it, it's like we step in, me and my team make sure that it's communicated properly and that everyone is trained properly too. Something that we do that I don't talk about a lot inside of C2C is if there are members of your team who need that training in sales, training in objection handling, training on admin, trying to understand how to be able to coach or deliver better, we can actually step in, not only create that SOP, but we can help train your team members to do that. So if you need help and support being able to do that with your team, then you can find me on Instagram at Coach Andrew Costa. Just send me a DM, say you're interested in C2C, and we can have that conversation to chat. Otherwise, that is all for this episode, guys. Thanks for watching another episode of C2C. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel as well, too. We do many episodes. This is actually the 99th episode. It's going to be episode 100 right for the end of the year, where I'm going to talk about, of course, our New Year's change and changes for 2026. But make sure you like and subscribe to the channel so that way you never miss an episode. Thanks, guys, and we will catch you on the next one.